Today we're going to follow in the footsteps of a saint. So let's go inside and I'll tell you the story. We are in the heart of downtown Denver. We're going to follow the footsteps of Julia Greeley. Very kind, endearing lady who spends her days trudging up and down these streets, even at night, giving charity to families, pulling a little wagon full of food and valuables to help people in need. So let's go in this church and go pay our respects to Julia Greeley. First, we must go back in time. Julia Greeley was born in Hannibal, Missouri, as a slave. Her actual birth date is unknown, but to be close to 1840. One day, she hung on to her mother at a young 5 years old and was hit with the whip her mother was being lashed by their slave master, damaging her eye. She never knew the full names of her parents, and it was unknown about her own name, but more about that to come. In 1865, Julia was freed during the American Civil War, whereas Missouri was a border state and had to enact its own emancipation laws. In 1871, Julia was living in St. Louis, Missouri, and employed by a Dr. Jervis Paul Robinson and his wife Lena Pratt Robinson. While working for the Robinsons, she met Lena's sister Julia Pratt Dickerson, a widow with 4 children, being courted by William Gilpin, former 1st Territorial Governor of Colorado. The two were wed in 1874 and moved to Denver. In the late 1870s, Julia Greeley left the Robinson family and asked Dr. Robinson to write her a letter to the Gilpins asking for employment. Julia decided to head to Denver on the hope that the Gilpins would hire her. In the 1880 census, Julia Greeley was in Denver working for the Gilpin family. Marital relations with the Gilpins were strained, and by 1883, Julia's service for them ended. She worked in New Mexico and Wyoming during the next 4 years, then returned to Denver in 1887 to testify in the Gilpins' better divorce trial. For the remainder of her life, Julia did odd jobs, cooked, cleaned in Denver, all the while looking after the city's poor residents. William Gilpin was a U.S. explorer, politician, land speculator, and futurist writer about the American West. He was a military officer for several wars, accompanied John C. Fremont on his second expedition through the West, and instrumental in the organization of the Oregon Territory government. An adamant believer in manifest destiny, as a politician and writer for a modern theory of the succession of civilization. Although a bit scandalous, financial dealings and leading to the demise of his political career. He made a fortune in being a land speculator in New Mexico. His dealings were questionable and even possibly illegal. Julia Gilpin was a devout Catholic and introduced Julia Greeley to the Catholic Church, in which she became baptized June 26, 1880, at Sacred Heart Church. When Julia testified on Miss Gilpin's side, Mr. Gilpin blackballed her, and for a time Gilpin, she couldn't even find a job.
Died January 20th, 1893, aged 80 years.
She loved Julia Gilpin's name, and decided to take it for herself. And also the name Greeley from the popular and lively 19th century newspaper publisher Horace Greeley, who once coined phrased a popular saying, "Go west, young man," as Julia headed for Denver. And here we have come to the Gilpin family plot. William Gilpin, 1813 to 1894, and Julia Gilpin Pratt, 1836 to 1912. Each side of their son, Willie Gilpin, passed away of a fall in Platte Canyon, 1875 to 1892, 17 years old.
Aged 76 years.
Rest in paradise, the Gilpin family, and Julia Gilpin Pratt, friend to Julia Greeley. We take a walk to Sacred Heart Church, where Julia Greeley was baptized, Denver's oldest still-used church circa 1860. Julia Greeley could be seen wandering these streets pulling her little red wagon full of food, clothing, and other needed items for the resident poor families. She was seen carrying a mattress on her back for a family, pushing a baby buggy for a new baby, and taking home broken toys to fix for children. She wore a black floppy hat, tattered dress on her small 5-foot frame, and carried a handkerchief to wipe her bad eye that often wept. She walked these streets handing out leaflets to the firehouses she loved, praying for the firefighters, even though her feet were pained by severe arthritis, her favorite being Denver Fire Station Number 1. She fasted each day till noon, telling the priest, "My communion is my breakfast." In 1914, Mrs. Agnes Earhart asked Julia to mop the floor. Noticing religious pictures, Julia asked if they were Catholic. Agnes said yes, and Julia asked where the children were, and Agnes replied there had been only one, but had passed away due to an illness. Agnes said she couldn't have any more children. Julia told her that there would be a little white angel running around the house. "I will pray and you will see." The only known photo of Julia Greeley is of her and Marjorie Earhart, the little white angel, taken on April 1916. Her unfaltering kindness never wavered. She donated her own plot to an African-American man who died. She couldn't see him buried as a pauper. With all her acts of kindness, she began to be called the Colored Angel of Charity because of her dedication to families in poverty. She officially was named Denver's Angel of Charity. On June 7, 1918, Julia went to Mass on the Feast of the Sacred Heart, where she fell ill. She was taken to St. Joseph Hospital, where she received last rites and passed away. She had given away her burial plot, and in repayment, she was laid in state at the Sacred Heart Church, adorned in her Franciscan habit, as she was a member of the Third Order of St. Francis since 1901. Her imitation of St. Francis beautifully evident in her love of giving to others. She lay in repose for 5 hours as word of her death spread. A first for a Catholic layperson and no one since. An estimated 1,000 mourners gathered at her funeral at Sacred Heart Church to pay their respects to an angel of mercy. She served the poor and indigent without ever questioning creed or belief. She only wanted to help those struggling and suffering. After her death and funeral, she was laid to rest here at Mount Olivet Cemetery in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, where her friends she had worked for and donation of the church assured her a beautiful burial plot and headstone. 100 years after her death, Julia Greeley was put in favor to be canonized as a saint. Many people have come forward with prayers to Julia and the miracles that followed. A group called the Julia Greeley Guild was formed in 2011 to spread Greeley's story. People see her as an ordinary person that became extraordinary. It gives us all hope. It reminds us that we too can be holy. We can be extraordinary. Mary Lissering, Director of the Office of Black Catholic Ministry. On December 18, 2016, Denver Archbishop Samuel J. Aquila presided over a special Mass to open Julia's case for canonization, an act of declaring that a person who has died was a saint and that he or she is included in the canon or list of saints. Whereas the opening for her cause of sainthood, she is deemed a servant of God. And here we have come to her first resting place at Mount Olivet Cemetery. A beautiful new headstone placed for her former resting place. In May of 2017, Julia Greeley was exhumed from Mount Olivet Cemetery. On June 7, 2018, Julia's remains were entombed to rest at Denver Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, the first to be buried there, 100 years after her death, on the vigil of the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart, the same day of her death, a feast dear to Julia Greeley's heart. More than 500 people attended her service. Honor guards from the Knights of Columbus, the Knights of the Ladies of St. Peter Claver, and the Denver Fire Department. Julia Greeley, the first to be brought into sainthood in the Denver Diocese, but even more significant, one of the 5 African American to be considered for canonization. There are no African American saints in the Roman Catholic Church. There are black saints in other nations. The official act of a Christian communion declaring a person worthy of public veneration and entering their name in the canon catalog of saints who lived and died in such an exemplary and holy way that they are worthy to be recognized as a saint. The 4 steps are to be deceased, a servant of God, of heroic virtue, at least 2 documented miracles approved by the Pope, blessed by the hometown and country, and will be called into sainthood and a feast day appointed. A box with 7,500-page document describing how Catholics had prayed to Julia Greeley for healing. The Archdiocese of Denver had gathered testimonials, historical records, and newspaper clippings to document Julia Greeley's virtues. A church court heard testimony of 25 witnesses who prayed to Julia Greeley and were healed. Julia Greeley was first entombed in the cathedral to be placed in a red wooden box for viewing before they were sealed and moved to the corner of the sanctuary for her followers to more easily pray. The cornerstone of the cathedral was laid in 1906, and Father Mack was appointed rector of the cathedral on July 26, 1908. The twin 210-foot spires were capped in 1911. The limestone from Indiana and granite from Gunnison, Colorado. The altar, sanctuary, and bishop's chair, marble from Canera, Italy. The 75 stained glass windows came from the FX Zetter's Royal Bavarian Institute of Munich. Lightning struck the West Tower August 7, 1912, and knocked off 25 feet. It was repaired before the dedication, and the entire build cost $500,000. On October 27, 1912, the cathedral was dedicated. 15 bishops and a cardinal, along with local dignitaries, attended Mass, to become consecrated in 1921 in a minor basilica on December 25, 1979. August 13th to 14th, 1993, His Holiness John Paul II celebrated Mass at the cathedral for World Youth Day. June 23, 1997, the east spire was hit by lightning, repairs taking 9 months, and rededicated June 23, 1998. Every week, 3 daily masses are serviced here at the church. 50 to 60,000 lunches are served to the poor and homeless. As an inner-city parish, community contributions are great, and financial needs are many, dedicated from this church to the residents here in Denver. In May of 2021, her official inquiry was accepted and validated by the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. With Julia Greeley's profound love for firefighters, the Julia Greeley Firefighters Prayer Union honor and prays for firefighters everywhere. You can enroll a firefighter or fire station or fire crew for 1 year or perpetually form on their website linked below, as well as a deceased firefighter and their family. You can go to juliagreeleyshome.org, and I will put the link in the description below. Hello friends, we are here today to follow the story of a lady who came here for a better life. She did many great things for charity. She came to this really cool church. She became a saint. And we're going to follow her footsteps. So let's go. Thank you, St. Julia Greeley, for your blessings. I am honored to tell your beautiful story of humility and simplicity.